Hi, my name is Silothabo Dliso. I am a research physician associate at Alder Children's Hospital, and I work within the clinical research division with a large focus on the clinical research facility.
Thank you. It's really nice to have the opportunity to speak with you. The first question that I was going to ask was, I know you do some really important work around kind of equality and diversity. Can you describe kind of one example of something that you're working on relating to the public and research?
Yeah, so one example is some of the work that I've undertaken to do with a group of people we call parent champions. And these parent champions are non-healthcare professionals who work within children's centres to give information to the parents and families that attend those centres. And one of the things we wanted to do is we saw the good work that they were doing, and we thought it might be helpful to engage with them and see how they can help us to engage different communities, to teach them more about research and hopefully get more engagement and interaction with research from those communities.
Well, that sounds really interesting. So those parents champions kind of act as a link between kind of the research services and the communities in which they're based.
Well, that's not their primary job. So their job is just about giving information to those families and communities. We just sort of saw the opportunity and just sort of said that these people are really well placed. They understand the communities that they're from.
Mhm.
They're not coming there as healthcare professionals or as scientists coming to do research on them, and they have a good understanding of how people from those different communities will see research and their perspectives on research. So if we can talk to them, they can sort of help to guide us on how to better engage those communities in a meaningful way.
Mhm. And are there any kind of things that have surprised you about, because as researchers, there's lots of things that we do that we kind of assume are the best way of doing things. Are there any things that those parents have kind of suggested or talked to you about that have meant that you've done things in a different way?
Yeah, I think one of the main things that they brought up was things like childcare. For example, if you're wanting people to come and take part in your research study, but parents, yes, they might have some of their children in school, but if they have other children that are not in school and they have to look after them, that's a
Mhm.
huge barrier to them trying to come and be involved in research and different things. Another thing was just how complicated research literature can be, because even though we from the research world may think that we've really simplified this information leaflet and it's really straightforward, that's not always the case. Because we might think, oh, it's only 3 pages long, so it's not that complicated. But in reality, for some people, that's an immediate turn off.
Mhm.
And they sort of made that point really really clear to say, you know what, you need to have something that's just um, quick and fast that they can look at and it can grab their attention. Because from our point of view, obviously we do things like iris forms and all these kind of things, and we have to include certain information in there. And so we're thinking about all that, and we're not necessarily thinking about, how do we catch the attention of different people.
Yeah, I think a lot of the kind of the materials that we do create are pretty inaccessible to a lot of people, for various reasons. So, and are there ways that they've seen, apart from making that kind of information much shorter, are there any other kind of methods that have worked well for helping share quite complex ideas? Kind of teaching what research kind of is, the point of research. Have you been involved in anything like that?
Yeah, so I think it's not necessarily a shorter way, but so one of the things I did was set up sessions around introduction to research. So
Mhm.
got these parent champions to attend these sessions, and it was largely led by them in terms of what they wanted to learn about um, surrounding research. And they would say, there's this specific topic or there's that specific topic, and we would discuss that in depth. So it's not really a shorter way or a quicker way, but what it shows is that us as researchers need to spend way more time to talk to people and let them tell us what they want to know about
Mhm.
research, rather than sort of us assuming that no, we just need to give them an overview of research for them to understand research. And so I think what it showed is that that's not how it works. We need to give them the time. We need to give them our time and allow them to direct their learning around research.
I think that's really interesting, and I think out of all of the interviews that we've done as part of this series, the investment of time to really get to know people and build up that relationship is absolutely the core message that's coming out of all of the interviews, how important that is and the difference that that makes. So it's nice to hear that kind of echoed again in the work that you're doing there in the community.
Yeah,
Um,
because oh, sorry,
go
I
on.
was just
No,
going
no,
to
no.
add that because a good example of that, in contrast to the sessions that I did, is that we had a study and they basically did like a half an hour Zoom session, which was not helpful at all. They found
Mhm.
that not helpful at all. Um, and they responded more to the sessions compared to that half-hour Zoom session that they received. So, that time investment made a big difference.
Mhm. And being there with kind of with them
Yeah.
within their own, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. And was the content of the Zoom session similar to the face-to-face? It just felt different because of the method.
Well, the content wasn't necessarily the same because in the sessions that I held, like I said, the this the content was driven by them, whereas like the Zoom session was sort of like, this is what you need to know about this specific study, now go off and promote it type of situation. Um, Whereas like, yes, in my sessions, the first part was an overview of research because we just had to start from somewhere. But once I'd, introduced a few concepts, then the questions started to come in, sort of like, oh, I have a question about this. This part doesn't sort of make sense, or this part would turn most people that I know directly off research. So, things like that were coming out of the sessions and allowing them to sort of, you know, show us where their sort of gaps in knowledge are and where their interest lies.
That's really interesting because it becomes a two-way conversation then, doesn't it? Rather than one person coming in and training or teaching, it's just kind of co-learning in a way, isn't it? Learning from each other.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons, that it needs to be that co-learning method, rather than we're going to go out and teach this community about research and then they're going to get research and then they're going to start participating in research, when in reality it needs to be that we're going to go out, talk to them, they'll talk to us, and we're both going to learn
Mhm.
things, and that's then going to inform our strategies on how we approach people to be involved in research in the future.
Oh, thank you. And what do you think are kind of the biggest challenges in, oh, it's a bit of a big question, really. One of the biggest challenges in actually working meaningfully with communities that as researchers traditionally we've not been great at working with?
I think the biggest challenge is not giving up, because it's not easy, and getting the link to that community is is very difficult sometimes, because you have to know where to go, you have to know who to talk to. There has to be some sort of entry point, and
Mhm.
at times it can look like there's no entry point. Or you might talk to someone and they just kind of like never get back to you, or
Mhm.
different kind of things. Not because they sort of don't want to, but just because life happens and
Mhm.
different priorities and things like that. So I would say like not giving up and not doing things the easiest way possible, which um I guess from sort of like even my own mixed lived experience with my background and everything like that, it's kind of come across that way at times that people do the easiest and sort of most tokenistic thing just to sort of like say they've ticked off the box, or just to sort of say yes, we've tried, but unfortunately we were unable to, so maybe we'll try again next time. But really we just need to invest that time and um and be vigilant and persistent.
Oh, that is really interesting. Oh, you kind of hit a nail on the head there. That just is really captures that quite nicely. And what do you think? So if we're hoping that these kind of podcasts will be listened to maybe by those researchers that are coming into research, that are wanting to do things a little bit differently, but maybe have got less experience. What kind of like top tips would you kind of pass on to someone kind of newer to the field of research?
I would say just asking any and all questions, just because that there's always something to learn. And what I've learned from my time working in research is that actually people tend to be very humble, and there's that old cliche of that there's no stupid questions, because no one can know everything. You may have an expertise in whatever background you're coming from, but if you're new, just ask questions and don't feel like someone's going to judge you for asking those questions. And in particular, around sort of engaging different communities, it's all about asking questions. And the issues begin when we start assuming or trying to infer what they might think and all these kind of things. It's all about asking questions and listening to the answer.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you so much for sparing the time to speak with us. So thank you, Silo.
No problem.